Did you know that there is someone who has played in a World Cup final for two different countries? Did you also know that there are two players in World Cup history who have scored against the country they were born in? As the 2026 FIFA World Cup draws nearer, I'll be building up to the tournament by giving you FIFA World Cup facts that you have never heard of. Welcome to today's video, guys. Let's go straight into it. Luis Monti, an Argentinian by birth or Argentine, has played in two World Cup finals. Not just in two World Cup finals, but for two different countries. He played for his native Argentina in 1930 and he was a runner-up. And then in 1934 for Italy, his country, I think where he naturalized and became a citizen and won the trophy in 1934. But that's probably not even the craziest part of the story. When FIFA were researching this story, they spoke to his granddaughter, who made mention of the fact that he received death threats on two occasions. And the first time was when, he was playing for Argentina. He was a very feisty player, and then it was the World Cup in Uruguay and, the World Cup final. A lot of Uruguayans did not like him and, he received death threats basically in that final. And if they had won it, nobody knows what would have happened to him. Even the referee of that game, I heard, had to be escorted on boat by police. It was crazy. Football in that era was something else. And then when he went to Italy, he played, he used to play for a club in Italy. And then he had a player in the Serie A at the time that they were like staunch enemies. But funny enough, they both became teammates in the Italian national team. And they were actually, I think they actually even shared a room, in camp or something like that. So, but he eventually played for the Italian national team. And, at the time, for those of you who know about the history of Italy's politics and government, Benito Mussolini was the Italian leader who, that was like at the height of fascism in Italy and in Europe. And Mussolini basically, sent a letter to the Italian locker room saying that if they don't win, they better win, basically, that their lives was at risk. We are at risk if they don't win. Every player on that team, they better win. This was at the height of dictatorship in Italy. So they eventually won the game and, but it was crazy because when you look at this story, obviously this can no longer happen in present day history. You ask how can a player play in a World Cup final for two different countries? Well, the reason is simple, is because at the time they were not the laws that you have in present day that prevent a player from representing another country after they've made, I think, 3 or 4 competitive games for one country did not exist that time. And so Luis Monti basically was Argentinian by birth, was born in Argentina, played for Argentina in the World Cup final, and then later moved to Italy to play. I think he was playing in Bologna in Italy, and then naturalized as an Italian citizen and played for Italy in the World Cup final and won it, something he couldn't do with his own native Argentina. So, that's basically how he was able to achieve this feat, and he was the first person at the time that was able to, make this kind of thing happen. So it is a very remarkable story. Luis Monti, he was a feisty player, even in Argentina and Italy, and he received death threats on both occasions. With Argentina, the reason for the death threat was because, the Uruguayans did not like him. And, if Argentina had won, nobody knows what would have happened to them in Uruguay. The tournament was played in Uruguay. It was the first World Cup, by the way. And, he was a feisty player. So there was a lot of confrontations in that final. I have a couple of pictures from the both finals of his various teams, a team photo of him with the Argentinian national team and a team photo of him with the Italian national team. And I'm going to add it to this video so you guys, so it takes your mind back to the times. And then with Italy, it was, like I said, at the height of fascism in Italy. Benito Mussolini was the Italian leader at the time, and he basically threatened the Italian team that if they do not win that World Cup in 1934, nobody knows what would have happened to them. So guys, let's go to the next World Cup fact here. Some of you might have heard of this, some of you might have not, but this is the highest recorded attendance in FIFA World Cup history, and it was at the Maracanã in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, in the 1950 World Cup final. between Brazil and Uruguay. Brazil have actually lost that game to Uruguay, and I think that was Uruguay's second World Cup win, 2-1. And the match is famously known as the Maracanazo, where Brazil were stunned. Everybody expected Brazil to win, but that's not even the major thing here. The major thing here is that there were over 173,800 fans in attendance, but a lot of estimates suggest that the fans in that stadium on that day could have been over 200,000 people. Imagine over 173. Let's even stick with the official numbers now. Imagine over 173,000 people going to a football game. The Maracana that I know as of today, I don't think it's more than 90,000. And even at the time, I don't know if the capacity was up to 90,000 or it has been expanded since then. That was 1950, by the way. So, it is a very remarkable thing, the World Cup final, and obviously, I think it's only the World Cup final that can draw that kind of crowd. I don't know what the tickets, or how tickets work back in the day. Obviously, they would have been paper tickets, but I don't know how much they were charging or if it was free for all. I assume it might have been free, and if it wasn't free, I mean, it's a World Cup final. I don't think it would have been free, but if it wasn't free, I think a lot of fans forced their way in because that's really the only way there could have been over 173,000 people in that stadium. That stadium cannot accommodate, or is not even supposed to accommodate, more than maybe 90 something thousand. So it is also very remarkable because till today that record has not been broken, and I do not think it will be broken, especially with the way matches and sports events are organized in present day, where everything is now digital. And if you don't have a ticket, especially you don't come to the stadium, improve security and all of that, it's not even going to happen. There have been many occasions where fans have tried to force their way in to like major tournaments. We saw Euro 2020's final in Wembley Stadium, but even at that, I don't think there were more than maybe 100,000 people total. So that record can never be broken. Now let's go to the next one. These are the top three goal scorers. The top three goal scorers in a single World Cup tournament. Now, Jos Fontaine was the person who set that record, and he scored 13 goals in 6 games at the 1958 World Cup. And obviously, Jos Fontaine, for those of you who don't know, was French. I think he still holds the record for the highest number of goals scored at a single World Cup. It's a very remarkable achievement in 6 games. Now there are more games in the World Cup as of today, but even then, I don't think anybody has still even been able to score up to 13. Even people that got to the final, the likes of Lionel Messi, Kylian Mbappe, these players have not been able to score up to 13 goals in one World Cup. Players have played 7 games. So Jos Fontaine is a World Cup legend. And of course, following him is a player from Hungary called Sandor Kocsis, who scored 11 goals in the 1954 World Cup. This is especially remarkable because of the country he's from. Hungary is not necessarily known as a powerhouse of football, especially in present day. But back in the day, at this time of like civilization, Hungary used to be, they used to compete, they used to go to these major competitions and stake their claim. They never won the World Cup, but they were always there or thereabouts. It was also remarkable. He was one of the pioneers of Hungarian football, so to say. And then of course, last but not the least is Gerd Müller. It's 3 players here. Gerd Müller of Germany with 10 goals and in 6 games at the 1970 World Cup. I think a lot of people know Gerd Müller for his record of number of goals in a single calendar year that stood for a long time before Lionel Messi broke it in 2012. I think that's the record he's more famous for. But a lot of people might not know this, but he's the 3rd highest goal scorer at a single World Cup. So 10 goals in 1976 in 6 games at the 1970 World Cup. And then Sandor Kocsis that I mentioned had 11 goals in 5 games at the 1954 World Cup. So let's go to the next fact on this list is Gabriel Batistuta. Gabriel Batistuta of Argentina is the first player and only player to date to score a hat-trick in 2 different World Cup tournaments. He first achieved defeat in 1994, and then in 1998, after scoring a hat-trick versus Jamaica. Till today, nobody has been able to break it. Kylian Mbappe scored a brilliant hat-trick at the World Cup final in 2022. Maybe he's going to be the first person to break that record, because he's still in his peak right now, and the 2026 World Cup is just by the corner, so he may be able to achieve that. He might be able to match that feat at the 2026 World Cup. Who knows? Now let's go to the next prompt, and I think this is probably one of, arguably for me, the one that stands out the most. Okay, not this, the next one after this. Did you know that Switzerland are the only team to have been eliminated from a World Cup without conceding a single goal in normal time? How this happened was basically at the 2006 World Cup. Switzerland, their first game was a 0-0 draw against France. Their second game was a 2-0 win against Togo, and their third game was a 2-0 win versus South Korea. But in the round of 16, they drew 0-0 against Ukraine in normal time, and then lost, guess what, by 3-0 on penalties. Imagine going 4 entire games without conceding, and then conceding 3 goals on penalties. That's crazy, innit? Yeah, so that's also another very standout fact from the FIFA World Cup. Now, this is a more recent one. In Qatar 2022, did you know that Breel Embolo, born in Cameroon, naturalized in Switzerland, a Switzerland player? Did you know that Breel Embolo became the second player to score against his country of birth at the FIFA World Cup? Now, the first player to have done that was Alfred Bickel, also of Switzerland. Also of Switzerland, and he scored, I think, against Germany or against West Germany at the time. I can't remember who now, but also of Switzerland. So it's 2 players, playing for Switzerland, scoring against their country of birth. But this one, why it stands out to me the most is that, you see, this is not just, you can, in club football, I've always been a person that does not really pay attention to people that give players slack for, celebrating against their former team or all of those. I don't really care about all those things. But I think this one is a bit more delicate, because this is somebody that is one of his, it's not just, it doesn't just have one parent from Cameroon, it was also born in Cameroon. To be born in Cameroon and have your mother from Cameroon and score against Cameroon in a World Cup, it's crazy, right? It's really crazy. I watched that game live. I watched the entire 90 minutes, and when he scored that goal, I think that was the most genuine reaction of a player who had scored against a team he probably did not want to score against. Like I said again, you see it in club football, players scoring against their former teams, or the teams where they became pro, or the teams where they were in the academy at some point, and they probably want to celebrate initially, that adrenaline buzz, but they hold it. But this one, it was an instant numb feeling. You could see it while watching it live. He scored, and immediately he just raised his hand up, and there was absolutely zero emotion from him. Obviously, his teammates were happy to score, and funny enough, that was like the only goal. That game ended 1-0. So it was really, really interesting. To be born in a country and have your mother from that country and go to another country, naturalize and become a citizen and play in the World Cup against your country of birth. His parents must have been watching if they are still alive. I don't know how his parents also felt seeing their son, who, one of them is from Cameroon and they gave birth to him in Cameroon, and their son, who was born in Cameroon, scored against Cameroon at the World Cup. They must have been supporting Cameroon as well, but obviously maybe supporting Switzerland. It was a weird feeling, I guess, to say, especially weird for Breel Embolo. And so these are some of the standout FIFA World Cup facts that I've gathered for you today, and that's where I'll bring today's video to a close, guys. I did tell you that I'll record a video about the FIFA World Cup, but it might not be the one you're expecting. So this is the video about the FIFA World Cup. Thank you guys for watching. Thank you to all my subscribers. If you enjoyed this video, please share to all football fans and all sports fans and everybody basically. My next video would probably be something related to the Champions League final. So look out for that. And obviously, subsequently, the World Cup as it draws nearer. I'll be talking about the World Cup more. So guys, until I record my next video, is bye for now. Ciao.